Hello world, my name is Ihor, and today I'd like to talk about the Octatrack and the Modular and how they connected together. Basically, I'd like to make a tutorial or a walkthrough on how I create the template project here so that I can use this template project to create new projects and get into the jamming session quickly, as fast as possible. For me, that's important because I like to jam quite a lot, and I don't really like spending too much time on preparing stuff so that this kind of vibe goes away. You know what I'm talking about, right? So yeah, let's jump straight into it, and yeah, hopefully that's gonna be something interesting and useful for you guys. Yeah, let's do it. And the first thing I'd like to talk about is hardware connection, which is really straightforward and simple. I've got my outputs on the modular going into the inputs A and B of the Octatrack, and then output from the Octatrack goes into the mixer and gets recorded into Ableton. And also I get the MIDI output connection connected to the palette case on the modular, and then which connected to this little MIDI module here, which receives clock and all the different information about it. Cool. And right now, let's go ahead and create a new project. So project change, yeah, it will stop playing back. Create an empty project, and I'm gonna call it TMPL, which is kind of shortcut from template. Yeah, it's gonna take some time to create. Then next thing, I'm gonna set the tempo to 128. That's my most kind of used tempo. So there is that, and then I'm gonna go ahead and save this project so that if I mess up with any settings, I can just go back into the really initial part of the project. Yeah, and the next thing I'd like to do is go into project or settings, into system settings and personalize menu. And this one is not per project, but rather you set it once on the Octatrack, I think per set. I might be wrong on that, but anyway. So here I have a couple of things to set. So save samples to, I like it when it's project directory. So whenever I sample something inside of this machine, it's gonna save it into the project folder instead of going into the audio pool where all my packs and samples are. So that one is useful. And then also record quick mode, enable that one. This allows to click record button, any of those, and start recording instead of holding the track and click record. That is useful as well because I do a lot of sampling on the Octatrack. And I think, yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to system settings. Yeah, and the next thing I'd like to do is to go to control settings and audio. I will enable track 8 to be a master track, so basically this track will receive all the audio from all the tracks. It's going to be kind of a main mixer. I will touch upon this a little bit further. Then go into memory settings and enable the 24-bit because this is my sample rate I use usually, and the dynamic recorders because sometimes I do not record just quantized loops, but I'd rather record like 30 seconds or 40 seconds of the mix. And since I'm not using too many flex tracks, I still have a lot of RAM memory to record stuff. So I'd like to record a mix down or something like that to share with friends. Not to bother too much with Ableton, but just directly record it here. Yeah, so this comes to that settings. And it's really important to set these settings up front because they require you to sort of reset the memory, and if you had anything in your memory at this moment, it's gonna be gone forever. And the next thing will be MIDI settings. I'm gonna go into sync and enable transport send and clock send. Right now, as you can see, there's like clock is not blinking. It means that modular does not receive the clock information, but the moment we enable transport and clock, actually, it starts receiving the clock basically. Which means that this tempo is being sent by MIDI cable into the modular, and it receives these kind of pulses. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for MIDI setup. Yeah, and the next thing will be to set the pattern settings, basically only scale here. So function pattern enters this menu, and then I can select the scale mode per track. What this allows us to do, basically to set different amount of steps per track, like differently. So you can have 32 steps on track 1, 6 steps on track 2, and so on. And also for that, I'm gonna go and enable the master track to be 64 steps. This is also important because if you're going to have any tracks up to 64 steps, master needs also to be 64, because after going to 64 steps, it kind of resets all the tracks back to first and then comes back. So yeah, and then like on track basis, for example, I can do 32 here, and yeah, and so on. But for now, I'm gonna keep it 16 per each, and that's pretty much it when it comes to the pattern settings. Yeah, and at this moment, I'd like to save the project and start configuring the tracks. And it's quite simple actually, not too many configurations I make. So track 1, 2, 3, and 5, and 4, basically from 1 to 5. For me, these are always static tracks. And what I do up front, I go ahead and I increase the volume on the mixers to max, even on the master track, just not to have any attenuation in place for any samples. And then tracks 1 to 5, I'm just gonna go and disable the loop option and keep them as static tracks, because these are my tracks for samples. So it gets a little bit interesting on the track 6 basically, because this is gonna be a through track which is going to play back the modular. There is a possibility to play back the modular directly by going into the mix section and yeah, allowing it to be monitored directly. This is, I use it as well, but in most of the cases I'd like to apply some additional effects on the Octatrack, or maybe the LFO for ducking effect and stuff like that. So for that reason, I'd like it to be in a through mode. And then going into settings, I will enable A and B, so inputs A and B. Be careful with that, because A plus B means that it's gonna summarize the inputs and they will be in mono. But if it's gonna be A space B, which means A and B, is gonna be a stereo. A goes to left and B goes to right. And then the volume goes to max, and that's pretty much it for the track 6. The only thing left is to put a playback trig. This is the Octatrack specific thing. Basically, these settings, like through is a machine, and to let it play back the modular, we need to kind of enable it, and that's how it's done, by placing one trig at the beginning of a sequence. And then going into track 7, this is my sampling track, which is gonna be flex track, disable loop as well. Then this is important, select the recording buffer 7, which corresponds to track 7, so that it gets recorded, whatever you record on this track is gonna be recorded into this buffer. And then go into the recording setup and enable recording length to 64, then disable loop. And for sort 3, I usually have like track 6 enabled, or any other track if I do resampling, or even the master track for kind of resampling stuff as well. But for now, it's gonna be track 6. And in recording 2, I'm gonna enable the quantized recording 16 steps. This means that it's gonna start recording after the current 16 steps will be finished, and they will go into the next 16 steps. So yeah, that's pretty much it for track 7, I believe. And when it comes to the master track, I just set the compressor as the last effect, and then I'm gonna put the compressor there as well. And filter here will be used for scenes later on. Yeah, but actually let's set up the scenes quickly as well right now. So I'm gonna select scene 13. For me, it's usually the high pass scene. And I'm gonna hold the scene 13 here, go into master filter and put bass into 70 and a little bit of resonance. And scene 14 will be low pass. Yeah, it's about 70 as well, and a little bit of resonance. I usually use these two scenes just to have a listen on how it's gonna sound, this kind of mix or this kind of beat, how it's gonna sound in high pass and low pass. It's kind of really basic stuff for performance purposes. Yeah. So yeah, there is that for scenes. And yeah, the last thing I'd like to make here before saving it as a template is a MIDI. It's gonna be, usually I go to track 1 and select any channel. For me, that's 13 for some reason. And that means that this MIDI track will send MIDI information into this module. So I'm gonna go into chromatic mode, click learn here, send any MIDI information. And right now, as you can see, I get triggers going. And if I patch pitch into the basimilus or any other voice or triggers into that as well, this is gonna sound like a chromatic keyboard. And I will demonstrate this later, I think. So yeah, and then I'm gonna go ahead and save this project. Any previously state will be lost. Continue. Yes. Yeah, I think that's pretty much for the template project. Everything is set and ready to perform. And yeah, let's do a quick demo. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna go into project settings and save to new, which is gonna copy this project, right? The template project, and create a new project, which is gonna be called project P1. Let's not go too much into the naming conventions. So it's gonna keep the template project untouched and saved and create a new project. Now the new project is now active, which we can mess with and yeah, and have a lot of fun. So let's go into the first thing and get the kick going. Kind of 4 on the floor kick. Yeah, this one, I love this one. For some reason I use it quite a lot. So let's get, yeah, maybe a little bit darker. Then I'm gonna go and grab the hi-hat from the same pack. Now. Yeah, this one. This one is quite long, but I think we can manage this one. So going into amp. Nice. Then here's gonna be clap, of course. Yeah, this one. Again, I'm not going to get some really crazy track fully finished, but just to demonstrate this project and how it works. And now we can try the high pass scene and then go into the low pass stuff. Yeah, nice. Yes. And now let's say I'd like to record a kind of a bass line from the basimilus, right, into the Octatrack. And I'm gonna do that by patching the MIDI. So trigger from MIDI is gonna go into basimilus, and pitch from MIDI is gonna go into basimilus as well. And now if I go into our 13 track here into chromatic mode, yeah, this, so sort of like a chromatic keyboard. I can also play back this, yes. Yeah, maybe that sound. Yeah, let's use this F sharp actually and get it into recording mode. No, it's not recording mode. Yes, so this get recorded, but now I'd like to have these trigs once per 2 bars. Basically, I'm gonna go ahead and create one more page. What is gonna create on the second page, it copy pastes the triggers, so I'm gonna remove those triggers here and have only those. And let's mess them up a little bit. Maybe longer. Yeah, something like that. Maybe a bit louder in reverb. Yeah. Hat, I think, is too loud. Yeah. So like this, and let's record this into track 7. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click source record 3, and it starts recording. Yeah, and now we've got our sample here recorded. And what I usually do here, I go ahead, I remove this 12 dB kind of gain staging thing, and then I go into edit, select all, and then normalize selection. So it's gonna normalize the sample, which is gonna sound extremely loud, I think. Not really, so sounds good. Then save selection as a sample. It's gonna be cut 1, let's say, and it saves it into the project directory, which is, if I go into track 4, for example, I can go ahead and find this project directory, which is gonna be P1, and there is our cut 1, and there is our baseline there. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna enable 4 bars on this track, because the sample is 4 bars or 64 steps, and I'm gonna put 1 trigger at the really beginning of a sequence, and yeah, we will have, okay, yeah, something like that. Maybe go ahead into filter, do something like this, and not that loud maybe, and then ducking LFO. I always love to put some ducking LFOs here and there, you know that. So on the Octatrack is quite simple. So amp volume inverted exponential envelope or wave shape multiplied by 16 and trigger sync triggered. Then I restart and increase the depth. Yeah. And let's say now I'd like to continue playing on the modular. Some other stuff, right? So let's get quick patch of the steppy. So I'm gonna reset steppy, and clock goes into steppy. So we've got our steppy running here. So, and I'm gonna put a few trigs here. So we're gonna have our baseline at the beginning, and then a couple of these trigs, and I'm gonna go into 1 octave higher, and then from the steppy I'm gonna multiply it, output A here. I'm gonna advance the mimetic on the X-axis. Also, I'd like to reset mimetic too whenever the sequence starts. And then from mimetic, output 1 is gonna go into scales to get it quantized, and we need to quantize to F sharp, something like that. So let's use these couple of notes here so that it sounds melodic. Goes into pitch, and also triggers from mult go into basimilus. Let's have a listen. I mean, that's kind of a cheesy sound, but yeah, maybe like that. we remove the filter here.
Yeah, something like that. I think you got the idea. High pass, and then we can go into the quick mute mode. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for today. So this template, as you have seen, is easy to use. So you create a new project from that template and then you're actually set to go, you're ready to go. And that's quite important for me to have on the Octatrack, because when I got it in the really beginning, it was really complicated to get the gist of it. But now, since I started using these template projects, everything became way much easier and straightforward as well. So I have everything ready to go and I actually enjoy more jamming. And that's, I think, where Dawless Setup is actually great, like by far great. I love it. Yeah. Let's also use this clap ES now and advance the filter. Oops. Yeah, I hope you liked watching this video, and if so, put a like on it or a dislike and leave a comment in the section down below to let me know how to improve those videos for you guys. Consider subscribing to this channel, follow me on Instagram, there is a link in the description section, and have fun.